We are live.
Welcome to Talking Shit. Okay, so today's topic. So one of the things about that we discussed on Wednesday is like what kind of topics we want to discuss, and one of them is like what's it like being like almost like having this strong female presence. And why I put strong in quotation is because some people, like, if you read people's reactions and stuff towards how you say things, you kind of feel like you're intimidating someone. So the topic for today is how do you kind of reveal your career and or slash title to other people, and like how do they generally react to it, like and how do you slowly do that? I think for you, Sats, I think it's a good question for you because if you want to introduce yourself, I know how you usually do it. You generally do it the way, but yeah, I think maybe let's just introduce ourselves. I would like Sats to go first, just because
All right,
I want to see how you take this.
I'll do
question.
it. I'll take it in my stride. Yeah. So, uh, Alice is gonna laugh because I always say I'm a med student. I'm a fourth year med student, and the reason why I qualify that is that people like look at me and like you're a little bit older than what we would think a average fourth year med student would look like, and understandably so. So I go on to say, but I'm also a qualified engineer. So I studied engineering first because that was what my passion was. And I worked for a bit in the field. I traveled for a little bit. I found a new passion, found a new purpose, which kind of led me to what I'm doing now, which is studying medicine. And that is where I'm at. So fourth year med student, previous mechanical engineer, and a whole bunch of other things in between. But yeah.
Yeah, let's get. Whitney, do you wanna
I'm pretty
go?
curious about the in between now.
Yeah, okay. We can get into it. I'm
You
an
just
open
threw
book.
that out there. What's happening?
I'm an open book. Yeah. So while I was traveling, I spent some time in India and I became a qualified yoga teacher. So I teach yoga as well. And in addition to that, like all my hobbies, I like to like smush right in there as well. I really enjoy high altitude trekking. I've done some pretty big hikes. Still keen to do more, and I love making music as well. So it just all sorts of things. I do a little bit of everything.
She dabbles.
I dabble.
Cool. So I feel like, are we gonna circle back to the other question? But
We'll
do you
circle.
okay?
Yeah, we'll circle back to it, but just to give some context, like to everyone out there,
Right.
kind of what's
Okay.
your title and why does it make us feel how we feel or other people?
Right.
Sorry.
So, well, my name's Whitney, and I'm a professional software developer, and I run my own company. So sometimes I call myself CEO, and sometimes I call myself the CTO because there's moments where I'm like, lately I'm more CTO than I am CEO, because when I actually had a team and staff, I was more CEO. And now it's kind of weird. So it's funny that you bring up this topic because it always makes me feel weird. Normally I just tell people I'm a coder. Yeah.
What? You undersell yourself? Okay. Okay. I have so many questions around that. And like
too.
the psychology behind it. I'm just gonna introduce myself quickly. So I'm Alice, and yeah, I'm a software engineer. I've been in the industry for this would be my third year. Yeah, this would be my third year coding as a software engineer. and I don't have any fancy stories. No, my name, no nothing. Just a little teeny fresh dumpling out in the wild. So yeah, so like the thing is like why I'm posing this question is like how do people feel when you reveal that you're a software engineer? Um, or not just a software engineer, like a doctor or whatever your title is, whatever title you pick. And Whitney, we're circling back to your question is like when you tell people like why would you prefer to tell people that you're a coder? Like what is it behind it? Like what makes you want to reach for that instead of like a CTO or a kind of a C level title?
I just find it puts people on the back foot and makes them intimidated, and needlessly, because I'm a very big squishy marshmallow and it just doesn't feel appropriate. Well, people go, oh, like, oh, okay, and it gets awkward usually really quick. So that's why
But like
I tend to.
is it like conversations dying awkward? Like a person doesn't know what to say. Like kind of give me an example of a situation or something.
I guess sometimes it just feels easier to give people a smaller, for me personally as an individual, usually I go the approach of giving people a smaller amount of information, and then if they seem interested, I reveal more and more information that is personal to me, because it sometimes feels like you put yourself on the line constantly, serving yourself up on a plate, and then people are gonna maybe like peck at it and be like, ha, like, you say that you run a company, and then people have all these questions. So usually sometimes people are like, oh, like, what does your company do? And then how many people do you have that work for you? Or like, what kind of projects? And it leads down a whole rabbit hole where people are actually trying to gauge how serious you are, because I think sometimes they don't expect to see like a young female saying that kind of stuff. So they like, my experience is to some extent like genuine curiosity, but it also feels like it's kind of validating and like trying to like place like this is an anomaly almost.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's really interesting because, like, there's a huge contrast between Sats and you, because I think Sats, you kind of when you introduce yourself, the first thing you do is like, "Hi, I'm Sats. I'm a first year I'm a fourth year med student. But don't worry, I used to do this and that and all of these things, and you have like these amazing experiences behind you, and like." So I'm trying to decipher like Sats, how do people respond to you after you've like introduced yourself in that way?
So for me, the response is always like amazement and like surprise and kind of like I would say just like excitement and they always want to know more and like and I always get the question why, like why did I change my career path? And and for me I find it exciting and the hope is that in a short space of time I'm able to give people almost like I want to say permission, but in inverted commas, to give them permission to do whatever they want, or show them that whatever they want to do is possible, and inspire people in that like space of 4 to 5 minutes that I'm introducing myself. Just giving people the freedom to see that I've done this and you can do it too, because I'm not anyone special. I'm just me, and I was able to make this change and like sort of follow the purpose that I saw myself doing, and the hope is to um, yeah, inspire people and motivate people to do the same and to be excited about life. Because I mean, I'm sure when you hear me speaking, I'm generally always like high energy and excited about whatever I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
and for me, like I genuinely want people to live their life with that same excitement, because I know how it feels. And I wish that feeling for others, to be excited to wake up in the morning. I mean, I'm sure, like, when I was talking to you, Alice, about your new a career change, and you told me that, when you started this, you woke up in the morning excited to, like, do the new things. And, like, for me, that was just, like, so heartwarming. It was beautiful to hear. I was like, oh, you get it, you feel it, so like, yeah, like, I think that would probably be it. The reason why I go into a bit more depth about, like, where I'm at and where I've come from is not just to, like, show off or, like, toot my own horn. It's more to show people that it's possible, because a lot of people just kind of think that where they're at is where they need to stay. But that's not true. And yeah, you're
But
very
so,
able to do
so
whatever you want. Sorry, go for it.
so what I find interesting is, like, the take between, but like the difference between, like, the perceptions that you both have, both you and like you and Whitney have, and the perception that, like, Whitney has is, when she reveals her information, it's more like people are going to ask her questions of curiosity, and sometimes it can be curiosity, but other times, like, I think with Whitney, how she might perceive it is more judgment, in people trying to judge how great you are, how good you are, where you're at, and all of those things. And like, I'm trying to, like, as I think for I know that with doctors, there are enough female doctors out there to kind of make it less of to kind of make it less of a stereotypical thing. But with engineering, like, I don't know what your experience was like in engineering when you're doing mechanical engineering, but it's more male dominant, and there's always this judgment of, oh, you as a girl, like, what, like, kind of, how good are you, why are you in this industry, what does this actually mean, kind of thing. And it's interesting in the sense that the way that you perceive things from your side of the world is, like, people are just amazed by your background story. But then I have to ask the question is, like, can you just reveal yourself? Like, if you were to just tell people, I'm a fourth year med student, how would they react to that? Because you did also mention that people, you feel that people are like, oh, you're so old as a fourth year med student. But to anyone else that's not in med school, like, that don't look at 20-year-olds all the time, we're like, what? There's never too old. Like, what the fuck? You're telling me I look old now? So the thing is, like, why do you think that people think that you look old, to actually then justify your answer to being like, oh no, I was a mechanical engineer before this?
So I think so before I say I'm a fourth year med student, I actually just say I'm studying medicine. And then the question I get asked is, what year are you in? Or like, are you doing your internship, or are you, like, doing your ComServe, like the more advanced kind of way. And, like, no, I'm doing fourth year. And then I get a look, I can see that they can see that something's not adding up. Like, I mean, you're intuitive. You can see people's faces, and
Oh, yeah.
and the thing is that, like, I'm not like embarrassed or I don't have a problem with people knowing or seeing that I'm older than what someone who's normally in fourth year looks like. That I don't have a problem with. So
Yeah.
and like I said before, giving that extra background, it's not only to justify me being this age. It's to show the journey, and to show people that it's possible to go on this journey, to have started off doing one thing, being completely passionate about, and still being passionate about it, but finding something else that kind of drives your soul more fully, or fills your soul more fully, and changing that path to go towards the purpose that you want to lead. So it's not just to justify my age. There is another like kind of reason for sharing that like journey in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah.
And then that would be it. Yeah.
Whitney?
So I feel like, yeah, I was just wanting to say that I think the story, one of the reasons why Sats's story is so compelling, first of all, I always find it really compelling when I find people who did something really hard and then they changed completely and did something really hard again. Like it's always just so nice because you're like, oh, this person didn't do the whole sunk cost bias thing. You know, they just figured out that they were wrong and they were like, you know, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway and it's going to be great. And I think that story resonates with a lot of people. It gives people hope. And I think it's like everything that we can actually all, to some extent, identify with, where we're like, it's like a very human story when you see people do something like that. And I think that that's actually the key difference. So my story is like the story of running a company or something. It sounds like you're being self-aggrandizing almost. Like it's not it doesn't feel like as much of a human story that's like hopeful in some ways. It feels, do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, so maybe that would depend who you're talking to, right? For many people, that is the goal. You know, it is the goal, the dream to run your own company. And I think some people that you speak to, who you tell them, you know, you do have your own company and you run your own company and you know you do what you do. I think that they would find that really inspiring. It just depends on who you talk to. And I mean, same with me. Like some people who I speak to might just think that this girl is nuts. Like, what were you thinking? Like, what are you doing? You're like a middle-aged person and you're in med school. Like, well, what are you doing? You're supposed to have a life and a family and be at this level in your career. But I mean that's just some people who you talk to, and then you have to just accept that, you know, everyone wants different things. Everyone has different things that they want to work towards.
So that brings me to the next question, because now you're mentioning like people having this kind of like there's almost I sense there's almost a societal pressure around this whole thing. Like society has these expectations and they want to box you up in this little box of like, hey, you're this age, you should be like having kids there, you shouldn't be running a company, what the heck are you doing as a woman running a company? And then there's also like the societal expectation where you're basically so basically, when you say that, hey, I'm a CEO, I'm running my own company, and then they're like, what? Like you're just another jerk in the office, like one of those C-levels up in the office, because that's the perceived connotation that most people get. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a CEO or being whatever it is. It's just that there are negative connotations attached to those things. Whereas a wholehearted story of like, I did something hard, I said no to the money, and I was like, I want to go into medicine and do something more spiritual. People can relate to that more because they're like, oh, you're giving to the community in some way, whereas like the CEO has a negative connotation of like, I'm just making money off of everyone else. But at the same time, the CEO can also have the same mindset of saying, hey, I actually want to do something for the community. I want to provide people with jobs. I want to make things better. But they have, the one has a positive connotation to it, whereas the other one has a negative. So my next thing is like, if you were to take away all these titles and stuff around you, if you were to take away all these like titles, like all this med school title, all the CEO, all this software engineer, whatever it is, like how would you identify yourself? What would you say who you are as a person? Like, how would you describe yourself without these titles now?
Me.
Anyone between you and me.
I love that question.
You're excited.
I think it's incredible. And yeah, I would say that I am a person who likes to help people and likes to or thinks that my goal is to get people to enjoy life and to be peaceful and uh, find inspiration in whatever they're doing. So yeah, I'm studying med school. I'm in med school and I've done all what I've done. But the core reason or the core purpose of whatever I'm doing is to help people, to be of service to people, and to inspire people to achieve whatever they want to achieve. So not to achieve what I've achieved, because I think everybody has their own path and
How would
their
you
own
do that?
passions.
How would so the question is like, what do you do like outside of work, outside of medicine? Like, who are you, and like, what do you do for yourself to be able to kind of do these other things? Like, how do you identify yourself? You're still identifying yourself as like a doctor, someone that gives care to other people. But I'm asking is like, how do you, if you look at yourself without a title, who are you without anyone else? Like, who are you as a person? No people, like, you're not affecting anyone. No, like, nobody cares about you. Who are you as a human?
I'm just a peaceful being. I don't know how better to explain it, but yeah, just
Okay,
just being.
so I don't know, Whitney, do you want to have a shot at the question?
Sure. I feel like I guess a defining characteristic is I'm like insatiably curious. I have so many interests, and if I could just sit in with the books all day or the internet all day, like I could just be so happy, so happy. So that's something that I think is characteristic of me. And I also, like Sats was saying, I like it when I get to help people have a more true expression of themselves. So I enjoy that like aspect of making people feel a closer alignment with like their highest potential, I guess, even if that's just thinking about like aligning their thinking on emotional topics, or the way that they think about themselves, or maybe helping them see, so I find that kind of stuff really fun. And then me, I'd say I'm like kind of quirky and bouncy and positive and like constantly questing.
Oh, yeah, I think I mean, it sums it up who you are as a person. So that's I mean, I'm not gonna I think for me, if I were to answer that, I'm very much a very curious person, in the terms of like, I want to just explore, dig around when I have the energy. So and then the other thing is like, try to problem solve. I wouldn't say that I'm problem solving for people, because I think we live in a society where we're surrounded with people. So anything that we do is kind of, it has to deal with people anyways. But yeah, I enjoy that challenge, like seeking out that challenge of how do you go about doing something, and kind of just feeling when you do something that's hard, and just getting that accomplishment. So for me, it's all about the challenge. So now we circle back to Sats, like what gives you that oomph, like without making other people's lives better or anything, like what gives you that oomph? Because everything that we do does touch someone else. And I mean, we're not murderers or criminals or anything by any means here. So like we all intend to have this positive effect on people.
So I come from a place, or I would like to be in a place of neutrality. So level-headedness at all times. So never be too excited about anything or too down about anything, no matter what happens. So when I say peaceful, that's what I'm talking about. So no matter what's going on outside, like inside my head, inside my mind, is peaceful. So there could be rioting around me, but in my mind, I'm I'm neutral. So if I have the opportunity to go exploring, I take that opportunity. If it's raining outside and we can't do that, I stay inside and, you know, find joy that way. So find joy in whatever is available to me at the time. It's a very kind of maybe abstract way of talking, but I've tried for a long time to get to this point where I can find peace and joy in whatever situation I'm at, and under any conditions that I'm exposed to. And I'm not perfect at it yet. I don't think that I'll ever be perfect at it, because I mean sometimes things go really nuts, and it just infiltrates in your mind and you lose your cool, and that happens. But when that happens, what I have gotten pretty good at is realizing when that happens and then working towards getting back to the state of neutral again. So I don't know if I'm answering your question the way you wanted to, but this is the best way that I can explain to you how I am, like, without anything else. Like, this is just me just being completely neutral no matter what. Yeah. Calm and peaceful
I have
and
a
joyful.
question.
Yeah.
So, like, you say you've been working on this. What would you say are some of the ways that you, like, do you meditate, or how do you get better at this kind of inner peace?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think meditation is a huge part of it. Just and there are tons of different methods of meditation, I guess you can call it. And everyone has their own one that works best for them. And again, like there are like other practices of yoga and spiritual readings and uh, other podcasts that I learn from, and other books that I read that have just given me this different outlook on life, and made me question why we're here and what everything means, and I think everything has kind
Oh,
of falls into place.
okay.
Who said ooh?
Recommend a book.
Recommend a book.
You mentioned books. What? Yeah. What
Yeah,
book was
there's actually
transformational
a
for
book
you?
that I just finished reading called. One second. It's called.
Oh, the pajama. That's well, not
The Power of
obvious.
Now. It's called The
Power
Power
of
of Now.
Now. That's a classic.
The Power of Now. So I read that book earlier this year, and it wasn't actually the first time I've read it, but I think it's one of those books that if you had to read it again, you'd get something more from it every time you read it. But yeah, The Power of Now. I actually recommended that to
Yeah.
Alice, who hasn't read it yet. But
in my
yeah, that
opinion,
was a beautiful book, and that really was a good one for me to read. But there are so many. Eckhart Tolle is a brilliant author. Even if you're looking for something more scientific, maybe Dr. Joe Dispenza is also a really good author. He's got tons of books out, and he goes into a lot of yeah, he goes into a lot about how the mind works, and the actual physiology about creating habits, and how to build new habits and maintain that, and how, and the reason why it's so difficult, but once it's achieved, it's like set for, like, it's permanent. So yeah, he's also a really good author if you're looking for good
Nice.
books. Anyways, yeah. So that's
Cool.
that's me. So meditation is a big one, and then just learning from people who know more than me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of neutrality, inner neutrality. So I'm pretty level-headed a lot of the time, but definitely have moments where I get super sad or something like that, and it feels like it takes a while to like come back to center. But so I think I guess like it's interesting to just hear about different techniques and know like, okay, do you examine those triggers and try to like, talk like almost like with yourself about it? I've actually noticed that works well because sometimes I'm like advocating
So
talking to yourself.
self-reflection. So whether you talk
Yeah, it's been
out
like
loud to yourself or you reflect mentally, it's a very 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 helpful thing. And just not well, kind of on the topic, but med schools are actually teaching students self-reflection in aim to help future doctors understand their own feelings so that they can better deal with whatever they're doing in order to be better doctors. Because
that's so
and
true.
like maybe
There's a
10,
huge
15 years ago, this was
emotional
nowhere near. Yeah, it was
yeah.
nowhere near the curriculum, and now they're realizing how important it is for well, med students and future doctors to have this skill. Because yeah, the emotional trauma essentially that you deal with as a medical doctor can be quite damaging if you don't know how to deal with it. So
I
yeah,
think
it's
with
interesting.
with like self-reflection, I think there's a degree of it that's good. Like there's a certain degree and awareness of it that's really really great. I've seen people that do not have it, and I've seen myself deal with it with too much of it. And it's and like there are it's a everything in moderation, I would say. So
Sorry,
everything
Alice,
in
just explain that though. Too much Alice in
too
your
much.
head. What happens?
So too much Alice in my head is basically a lot of self-doubt. So the basically the confidence, you start questioning and you basically take responsibility for other people. So like I had an incident last night, and like I think me when I was about 20 odd years, like 10 years ago, dang it, I'm so old. So, like, when I was in my 20s, I would have been like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? But let me give you some context with what happened last night. So, I went climbing, and there was like this lady that was like, hey, can you help me with this? Like, show me how to do this problem. And I was like, yeah, like all ready to get up, but someone else got there before me. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll wait for this person. And then she basically had a conversation with the friend next to me, and I tried to join that conversation. And I was like, yeah, so you're foreign, how are you like enjoying Cape Town? She completely outright ignored me. And like obviously my feelings are hurt because that's the natural thing, because you're like trying to engage with a person and this person isn't engaging back. But like me when I was in my 20s, I would have been like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? What the fuck? Like how could I have made this better? And try kind of like salvage that moment. And I know from experience that the more you salvage from that moment, the worse it gets, because now you're trying to force something that's not supposed to be there. But like with that experience of like, hey, telling yourself this isn't your fault, you did absolutely nothing wrong, this is all on her, she's just being rude, you did whatever you did. So it's learning to just draw that boundary of like, actually, this isn't your fault. Like she's just being a bitch, outright being a bitch there. Like go on and do your thing, have fun, that kind of thing. So it's like, whereas if I was in my 20s, I would have been like, oh my gosh, walk away, being like, I'm so mad at this woman, she just didn't want to engage with me, blah blah blah. And so that's like overtaking responsibility, like being so responsible and self-reflecting so hard and being like, what did I do wrong? When you in reality you did absolutely nothing wrong. You're just going about your day and just trying to be nice, whereas someone else could be an asshole. And that's the thing,
But
it's like
that's the same Alice in your head that's now wiser and older telling you that it's not
yeah.
your problem.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, it's the same, Alice, but it's like why I'm saying like self-reflection in moderation is like don't always think what did I do wrong, or ask questions like why like sure I can ask myself why did I feel that way, but also I shouldn't be going furthermore and saying what can I do better, because like in that situation, in that given scenario, there's nothing to be done. Like I did the best that I can, just walk away. So yeah.
So I was gonna ask what your idea of self-reflection is. Like what
Okay.
for you, what does self-reflection entail? Because I think maybe there's some difference, or like different people think self-reflection means different things. Because like
Yeah.
in my mind, self-reflection would be more like self-introspection, if you want to call it that. Whereas where you think about a situation or a moment, and it's you don't think of it in a way as what did you do wrong or what can you do better. It's just you think about the situation and what happened and how to be okay with it or how to deal with whatever happened. So the person ignored you, the first thing I would think about is whether they heard me, or whether they were busy talking about something else. And I would try to think about, did they really ignore me, or was there something else going on? Like, but I mean, that's always how I go. I never, I always just think of like
Yeah.
the alternative, you know. But I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
I
you tend
would
to give
say that,
someone the benefit of the doubt, rather,
yeah,
whereas I would come from a more accusational stance, and
sure.
I'd say in that scenario, whether she heard me or not, like she did isolate my friend from me that I was already sitting next to. So in that situation, like the assumption already that you're trying to isolate me from someone that I was originally sitting with, and having a
Sure.
full-on conversation with that person only, like to me it's just like, yeah, okay, cool. I don't care that you're just trying not to engage with me. I'm making eye contact. I'm doing all I can. But
Yeah.
we're going back to your question, like what is my definition of like self-reflection? And
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of laughed at that because it's like that's what I do at night, like laying awake, struggling to sleep, going, what the fuck did I do today? Meanwhile, it's just like, hey, you were just being normal. So I still go through, I think now that I work remotely, I have less of those because now I don't have as much human interaction. So I'm like, hey, it's okay. But there's still that thing of like, what does my manager think of me saying this? Like, what did I do? Was this joke appropriate? Like, how did I answer these things correctly? So it's that kind of reflecting, I'm so awkward kind of thing, and how can I like interact better? How can I make this interaction a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable for everyone? How can I kind of just hold myself with more confidence? So it's like I basically have a whole playback of the day and being like, okay, these are the things that I interacted with.
So I have this as well. Like I get like flashbacks, and the best saying I ever heard to describe this comes from Adventure Time, and it's, my mind hand touched the hot memory stove. And I'm like, I love that, because I'm always like, oh, I'm so stupid. And it's like my brain has learned now to like just shock me. It's like for no good reason other than to like make me squirm. That's what it feels like. So I think that's a level of just like anxiety and self-criticalness, and a tendency if you are an anxious person and if you are very self-critical. But in terms of self, like what did you call it? Sorry, self
So self introspection versus like
self-introspection. Yeah, so
self reflection.
Yeah, so I guess what I mean is like sometimes I would look at some of these situations and be like, oh, okay, well, why was I offended that this person didn't want to interact with me? Or like, why was I offended in some ways? Like, I tried to be courteous to this foreigner by trying to be inclusive, and then they stiffed you, you know, they were rude, and you were like, you were being generous. So actually, the problem is you gave something, and then they rejected the gift. And then you're there being like, wow, like that's terrible, you know? But in reality, maybe you could examine also like giving with the expectation to have that reciprocated. I mean, that's just being polite though. I mean, like you're very entitled to have those feelings, and I agree with you that you're like, that's that lady's problem. But the self-reflection I'm kind of talking about is where you're like, not the self-critical thing that haunts you when you're trying to sleep at night, the thing that is omnipresent when you're trying, not always, but yeah, it's more just a way of like playing stuff back in a logical way where you can be like, based on who I am and my past experiences, and based on, you know, so
yeah. I think you make a good point, like trying to basically reflect without like so basically I think the thing that you've identified with how my reflection went was, instead of putting the blame like instead of like putting the blame on anything, I put the blame on her, but just so that I don't have to feel too guilty to do anything about it. But I think you took a step further, which is great, because it's like you are trying to help this person, but with like an expectation of some sort of engagement. Like there's like it's giving with a thing, which giving, it's like a transactional thing that I'm looking for, and I basically gave and was like, I'm waiting, which I think you make a really good point in that sense. And I do need to reflect a little bit harder, but I'm not going to.
I only say this because I've been like on this journey, I guess, of understanding that, because I like being generous and I give a lot, and sometimes there's there you to some extent we don't always examine the things that we deem positive, right? So if you are giving and generous, you're not like critical, like, why am I giving, why am I generous? But actually sometimes, you know, there'll be moments where like I'll teach someone how to code or something, but then when they don't show up regularly and show me progress, then I get annoyed, and I'm like, I have to, like, that doesn't always happen, but I've seen it happen in the past. Like most of the time, like honestly, I teach people, and then whether they drop in or drop out, I really don't give two hoots. But I've learned now to like examine, like, why is it that I'm discounting my services for certain people? And then when they treat me badly, I'm like, oh, excuse me? But actually that's a pattern where I give people too much and then they don't respect me necessarily. And it's like sometimes it's like some kind of like codependency stuff. Like I don't really fully, I'm like trying to read up a lot more about it, because I'm just saying there's wolves in sheep's clothing out there.
It's a very interesting
I completely
thing. I
get
mean,
what you mean.
like if you talk about things in the workplace and then things like just in normal life, I think that they're maybe similar but also different situations. And like what I like picked up on what both of you guys said is that, you know, giving something of yourself with the expectation, like, you know, like I gave, you must give back kind of thing, you know. And like for me, in my mind, I always, whenever I give energy or give anything, it's always without the expectation of anything in return. And the thing that I always think about is that I only give as much as I am willing to lose. So
yeah, so people who are very good with
regardless of
boundaries,
what,
like Sats, can do that. But I have like sometimes like leaky boundaries, and like I sometimes like like it's like being out of balance. You just over give, and then the other person just pokes you, and they're like, haha, and then
sure, I
because
hear you.
Yeah.
That
So,
ability to
yeah.
understand I can give this much without going out of balance, that's an amazing like superpower, basically. Sorry, Alice, you were saying.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. Like I have the exact same problem where like, but it's the weird thing is that it's unconscious. I think I never really thought about it. I think, are you guys frozen? Okay. Am I back? Okay. So I've never really thought about it in the sense of like giving without expectation. I've always it's almost like this unconscious thing of just doing it and being like, hey, I want to be like you think you're a nice person, but when the other person isn't reacting in the same way as you are, and you're like, wait, there was an option to be not nice, kind of thing. There was an
Yes.
option. And like you're surprised by that, and you're kind of hurt, and you're like, what? I didn't have to give. That was a thing. Cool. I could have just chosen that.
But I mean,
But the thing is, I think that.
Okay. No, you go. You carry on.
But the thing is, like, what I'm trying to say is that there's that like giving and almost that expectation, and it's not just because we're aware of it or not aware of it. I think most people walk around not being aware of it, and most people are very transactional in general. So like in the sense, like I think we started this conversation off with Whitney being like, I only give a certain amount of information to people until like they prove to be wanting more, then I will give more of that information. And it's the same thing in like how I approach new people. Like I will help you, I will help you, but you also have to kind of give a little bit. And once you give enough, I'm like, oh, okay, this can be unconditional. And I think that whole like unconscious condition of like, hey, you're a stranger, let's help you out, kind of test the fields a little bit kind of thing. I think it's more of although we're not completely conscious of it, I think it's almost a defense mechanism for like trying to weed out the shitty people out there, because everyone's just looking for something.
Yeah, stereotypes are actually people say that stereotypes are bad, but they're very useful for us to make shorthand. But the stuff you're talking about is also, I think it's something Gottman therapy or something. It's to do with relationship psychology, but there were these two, it's a married couple, psychologists or something, and it's one of the most scientific forms of psychology that's ever been developed. But it's about the fact that in human interactions, people make bids, what they call bids. So when you're in a romantic relationship, a bid can be, it's you requesting kind of like a pat from your partner, so you like make a bid that they give you a hug, or if you make them tea, that's a bid, and or you make a joke and you look at them and you hope that they laugh. Like and depending on what the ratios are, you can determine actually whether people might like divorce or something like that. And then there's the four horsemen, there's like contempt, and it's a whole thing. But I think what you're saying, Alice, sorry, is basically like when, let's say we have like 5 bids or like cards in our hands and we meet a stranger, we can't just give all of our precious energy. We have to like place a bid, and then they have to give us a bid back, and then we,
Yeah. So, but it happens so unconsciously that, like, I think when you pointed it out that, hey, you're expecting something back, and I'm like, oh shit, yes, I am. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Sats.
No, look, I mean, I think it's just a different way of thinking. I mean, like for me personally, like when I meet someone, I jump right in, and we either vibe or we don't, and I'm 100% okay with whichever way it goes, And like I think there was something I was listening to. I think it was they were talking about people in the workplace, about when you meet someone new, it's great to show them all of you in a short space of time to get to see whether you vibe with them or whether you don't, as opposed to you slowly like exposing little bits only to realize like, a month later that you guys don't gel well, and you've like gone through this whole month where you could have just like gotten this out of the way in like 2 days. And so and it's the same way if you do work well, I mean, then you've figured that
Yeah.
out.
Okay,
I
but
feel
there's
like
like
this is
two.
like
There's like
dating. Sorry.
there's like
Sorry, I
there's
feel like
two.
this is like dating and then farting after the first week. And you're like, okay, are we together for the rest of our life?
Extremes, right?
I mean, I feel like there's two sides to what you're saying, Sats. Like, I totally understand what you're saying about the expediency. There's certain people and certain moments, like when I totally feel in my element, that I'm like, these people better love me or hate me. Here I am, And this goes back to Alice's first question: is like, what is it like being a strong character? But I feel like sometimes the nature of being slow to reveal yourself is also a bit like, like we're like onions, like Donkey says. And it's kind of like sometimes I feel like I keep certain things for people that have gone the distance, like there's aspects of myself that I will only reveal under certain conditions, potentially. It's like a level of trust, and then I almost like give people a little gem. I'm like, here you go, here's like access to some, the way I see things, or I don't know, some
no, for sure.
little quirky story about my past or something. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm definitely not saying all your deep dark secrets to everyone the minute you meet them, but I'm saying enough to let them know who you are.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry.
No, you go.
Go ahead, Sats. No, I was saying that like you kind of get them, you kind of get the vibe of the person almost immediately. Like, just like the thing for me is that I read people by their like how they react to things, how like I think similar to what Whitney was saying, like you give little kind of what did you label them as, like kind of you kind of give them little nibbles and bets and like this little almost you're fishing
like bait,
kind
like
of
little yeah.
So you're kind of just giving them little baits, and that's the thing is like when you give someone baits just to see their reactions, you can almost read it immediately, like what their vibe is, like what they're interested in. And I'm sure the other person is doing the same thing as well, and they'll ask you that general question of like, hey, what do you do, what's going on in your life? And then eventually you're going to find a topic that you like. If you're really excited about something, like eventually you're going to find this topic and you're going to just gel really well. And or sometimes even if there isn't a topic, there's something that if someone talks about something really passionately and you're like, holy cow, this person's so passionate about it, I want some of that, you can immediately be like, yeah, you can be my friend. So it's like these little nibbits of things, like there's telltale signs of you can be my friend, you can't be my friend. I definitely have people that I'm just like, yeah, just one arm's way, please, like stay there, not in my bubble. Just
today what's funny is, so like when I met Alison Satz not that long ago, actually, we were sitting at like a friend's birthday party and we all met one another, and we like Alice and I meet, we're hanging out, we're chatting and getting along quite well. And it's like super early in the conversation, Sats comes down, sit next to us, and then Alice is like, so what is it like being strong female personalities? And Sats and I are like, what? She's like,
I know, like from your personality, like I think that was the first night that we both met Whitney, and like from what you've given me and the information that you've given me, like I can immediately tell that you're not very judgmental. You're not going to judge me on asking these stupid things. You're just going to be like, holy cow. Whereas like there are some girls where I will never ask that question to, because I just it's almost it's like they'll never talk about something like that. They'll never have that. They won't share an experience like that. Like you can very much tell that it's difficult for them to kind of wrap their heads around certain things. So you're like, okay, cool. I'll ask you something else. That's fine.
That's great. Well, that's why we have the podcast. So yeah, thanks, Alice. Good job. I feel like we should consider making it like
I think it's a
little wrap. Well, I met Alice. I was like, Alice should have a podcast. She's asking the real questions here. So here we are.
It's all thanks to you. If it wasn't for you, I would just be like, yeah, let's just keep talking shit on the side.
Well, I mean, nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I like this a lot. I feel like this is really fun. Because of Brandon's rule of like no past an hour.
Yeah,
I think we need to wrap it up, because Brandon was saying like, if he sees a podcast that's like longer than an hour, he's like, doesn't want to watch it. Even if he says like 30 minutes, he starts like tweaking out, which I think is pretty common for a lot of people. Yeah. I'm a fan of the Lex Friedman podcast, and those are typically 3 hours or more long. So I'm like, wow. An hour, that's a starter. But you know, not everybody has the same kind of ridiculous podcast stamina.
Yep. Yes. So just to wrap it up, do you have any last words, Whitney?
No. I'm excited to hear what the next topic is going to be. It's going to be cool. We also need a channel name. I'm not sure if talking shit might be taken.
I don't know.
Surely if that's taken.
It'll be the toilet talk.
Does everyone need to know that we don't have a channel name yet?
No.
No.
Do you have any last words, Sats, to wrap up today's conversation?
Yeah, look, no, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I love talking about this. I love talking about stuff, like anything, whatever it is. It's always good fun for me. Never too seriously. Always respectful, and yeah, it's been good. Appreciate it.
Always nice. Thanks, guys. Okay,
well,
I'm gonna say bye.
I gotta say peace in the world. No, I'm kidding. Bye.